Welcome back to Close Up. It's likely that more than a few of you were deprived this weekend of the usual political discussions prompted by large family gatherings. So we wanted to bring you one safely distanced and free of charge this morning. And to do that, we have some of the sharp young minds of New Hampshire politics to talk about the headlines. Ashley Marcoux, president of the New Hampshire Young Democrats, and for the Young Republicans, Representative Joe Alexander of Goffstown. Thank you both for joining us.
Thanks for having
us.
Representative, let's start with you. A new poll from the UNH Survey Center shows more than half of the voters who cast their ballot for President Trump earlier this month actually believe he won the election. Do you think that continuing to foster that belief without any evidence of the widespread coordinated fraud that's being alleged is good for the country?
Well, I personally believe that the elections we do in New Hampshire are safe and secure. I attended multiple recounts last week in which votes largely didn't change, and for the most part, the votes were really accurate. So I would say, like, the elections we do in New Hampshire are safe and secure. So I would say that I'm confident in the election results, and I'm confident that Joe Biden won New Hampshire, although I wish that it was President Trump.
Ms. Marcoux, we know you have a different take on this. Do you believe there will be any long-term consequences of President Trump's prolonged fight of the election results?
I think there'll absolutely be some leftover distrust in our political institutions that President Trump has absolutely made worse. But I think that the best hope that we have as citizens, not just Democrats or Republicans, is to really question, because we know our election system, just like Representative Alexander just said, is secure here in New Hampshire. So when people are bringing up these allegations of widespread voter fraud, I think the best thing that we can do is to just walk them through. How exactly does that happen? Where are these votes coming from? And just distill these beliefs kind of block by block, because as we've seen with mis and disinformation, it's really hard to just say something isn't true that somebody believes. So I think we just need to kind of walk through the issues together.
Yeah, certainly anyone in New Hampshire can observe the process, and probably good for everyone to get a closer look at how that works. Let's stay with you, Ms. Marcoux. There's an epic fight right now in Manchester between the state and the city over that homeless camp at the Superior Court. What do you say to people who argue that Mayor Joyce Craig, with or without state help, should be taking a more active role to try and solve this problem in her own city?
Yeah, so I'm sitting here in Manchester now. This is my home city as well. So just speaking from my perspective, homelessness is not a new issue here. My mom, dad, and sister were all born at CMC on the west side of Manchester. My nan lives a couple blocks from Chez Vachon now, and I can tell you from experience that housing insecurity is a decades-long issue here. So from my perspective, the governor's current action on housing instability is great, but it comes a little bit too late. And I can tell you from also my experience over the past couple of years at the Kennedy School, 2.5 years ago in spring of 2018, Mayor Joyce Craig joined a cohort of 40 mayors from around the city and the world at the Bloomberg Harvard City Leadership, which is a research institute at Harvard that works on the use of data and innovations in government. And what Joyce Craig was working on at the initiative was homelessness. She was looking to come up with a more effective way to reduce homelessness, and just recognizing that this is a complex issue that intersects with mental health and substance use disorders and has been made much worse by rising joblessness, evictions, and unsafe shelter conditions. So Mayor Joyce Craig has been working on this again for two and a half years, and it isn't just a Manchester issue. But it's really disappointing that Governor Sununu has not attended a single meeting between Manchester and the state to address this issue. And instead of working with cities to transition homeless individuals and families back into stable living conditions, the governor callously sent state police to rip our most vulnerable citizens from their camps and confiscate their only possessions, a week before Thanksgiving, when things are getting really cold outside and the pandemic is getting worse. So I think the governor has had a lot of attention on this issue, and I'd like to see some more meaningful action from Governor Sununu.
Representative Alexander, does the state need to do more here to take responsibility for a problem that is beyond Manchester?
Well, Adam, I do actually want to set the record straight, because the governor's been consistently supportive of the efforts to move that camp. They have been involved at that camp since March. And the governor has also allocated CARES Act funding to the mayor of Manchester, actually $2.3 million that we have no idea where that money went. The governor's been there. The governor's been there. His staff has been there. There's been aid They've been there for 2 months in September and October every single day to try to provide assistance to these people. There was a 10-day limit set in order to move away from that camp. Nobody took the offer. And then when the troopers came in, approximately 37 out of 50 people accepted help. So they're going to receive services in places like Derry and Laconia at different facilities. So the governor's been consistently supportive of Mayor Joyce Craig in providing funding. And unfortunately, Joyce Craig hasn't been transparent on where the funding's going and what's being used, what's it being used for. Myself, as somebody who lives in Goffstown, one of the suburbs of Manchester, I'd like to see something more done.
Ms. Marcoux, we'll give you a chance to respond there. And also, do you believe if people don't want services, should they be allowed to stay on that public property indefinitely?
I mean, until the state or the city comes up with an alternative housing solution for the people living in that encampment, I think it's just irresponsible and frankly immoral to confiscate their possessions and to say that they can't stay there, but they have nowhere else to go. And I think with what Joe just said about the money and the funding going to Manchester, I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but I know that the money that the city of Manchester received was not adequate for the number of beds that they were then expected to provide. And also we know from the homeless situation nationwide that shelters during COVID-19, homeless individuals are less likely to want to stay there long term because of the health risks. So we need to find long-term solutions for these individuals who, they don't have their jobs, they don't have income. We need to find a way to get them back into stable living conditions.
And Representative, last question on this topic. If the city is saying, hey, we need help, we don't have the money to do this, should the state take a more active role?
Well, we believe that we provided consistent funding to the cities to deal with this issue. Everybody who has requested help, everybody that wanted a bed got that. So I believe that the state is doing and the governor's doing everything they can. It's just about addressing the issue on the city level. The governor has put together a task force to deal with the homelessness issue, and they're actually meeting next week. So there's movement on the state level to deal with this already.
Staying with you, Representative Alexander, some of your fellow GOP state reps have filed legislation to initiate an impeachment inquiry into Governor Sununu over his handling of the COVID-19 pandemic, particularly the mask mandate. What are you going to say to these reps when you see them on Organization Day?
Well, Adam, I'm proud to be one of the 515,000 people that voted for Governor Sununu last week or a couple weeks ago. Statistically, 2 out of 3 of us on this call might have voted for Governor Sununu. So I will say that he's a very popular governor. Some of those 7 reps actually attended different photo opportunities with the governor to be able to be featured on a mail piece with him or a digital ad or other things. So I guess I would say is I've supported the governor before the election. He supported me before the election, and I'm sure going to support him right now. Ms.
Marcoux, Democrats have taken issue with the way that Governor Sununu has handled this pandemic, the approach, obviously, taking all the funding, not going through the legislature. Does he deserve to be impeached, though?
I think impeachment is probably going a little bit too far. I haven't seen that across the country in any other state legislatures, and I think that this is an unprecedented situation. We all need to come together and have a little bit of compassion and also just listen to scientists, look at the data and come to a solution. But I think impeachment sounds extreme.
All right, as we wrap up here, you mentioned compassion, Ms. Marcoux. I have a question for you both on this. We know this pandemic has been difficult for everyone, but particularly with young people, it seems to have frozen everything in place, not just the recreation and the fun, but also professional opportunities, work, life changes, things like that. What's happening to young people right now? How do you think this is going to shape you both as leaders and your generation as leaders in the future? We'll start with you, Ms. Marcoux.
Yeah, I think that we're learning on the job for everybody involved in public service and academia and municipal state government what crisis management really needs to look like in the modern age. We've heard from scientists that this this pandemic may not be the first one. With climate change, we could see more in the future. So we need to come together to have responses ready and prepared everywhere from the local level up to the federal level for when things like this happen. Because like you just said, life is completely frozen for young people. You know, going to school for young kids certainly isn't the same. Going to school for in college, higher education is not the same. And it's a shame that our leaders and our governments were as unprepared as they were, that it's had such a terrible impact on young people in the United States.
Rep. Alexander, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think as young people, we're all making that conscious decision for the holidays to be a little bit more careful around our relatives. I mean, me personally, I know we're recording this before Thanksgiving, but I'll be spending Thanksgiving, just me and my 2 roommates, just to make sure that we're staying safe and being careful during this pandemic. So I would just say, like, young people, their lives are being altered, but more importantly, I think it's important that we are careful and deliberate with the things we do out in society to make sure everyone stays safe.
All right, Representative Joe Alexander of Goffstown of the New Hampshire Young Republicans and Ashley Marcoux, President of the New Hampshire Young Democrats. Thank you both so much for joining us on Close Up. Hopefully not the last time we see you on the show.
Thank you,
Thank you, Adam.